In a prior video that I came to El Salvador to come check it out. Obviously wanted to see firsthand what it's like, experiencing a country that has Bitcoin as legal tender, and see what the hype was all about, right? And see, there's a lot of criticism about El Salvador, and there's a lot of people who cannot stop singing its praises. So I had to come see it for myself. So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about an idea that I think would be amazing for businesses here. So, obviously the biggest domino that needed to fall was making Bitcoin legal tender here in El Salvador. And that's already happened. And, a lot of the legislation around Bitcoin and how things work tax-wise here and even for businesses, it's awesome, right? It's beautiful. And of course, there's, like everything, there's an education gap, and there's also individual responsibility from people who need to go and be intellectually curious themselves and figure this out. But there's one law in particular, after talking to a number of different businesses and even trying to buy some stuff with a little bit of Bitcoin here and there, that I think really needs to happen. And so basically, it's a tax law. So I mentioned this idea today on a Twitter space that Max and Stacy Herbert were on. And Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert were on. And so what the idea basically is so whenever you go to pay, right, you've got sales tax. And in El Salvador, there's a 13% sales tax, right? So if an item costs $100, you would think that then the item would be $113, right, with the tax being $13. But the problem right now that I see with the current law is if I pay in dollars, the merchant, owes the government basically $13 in sales tax for that sale. Now, if I pay in Bitcoin for that same $100 transaction, the merchant still owes the government $13, right? Not whatever $13 is worth in Bitcoin, or 13% of the amount of Bitcoin that I sent for the time of the sale. So I think that's problematic for a couple reasons. Number one, businesses need to be able to, hold on to their cash and expenses because, a lot of these taxes, right, they're either paying quarterly or annually. And if everything is denominated in dollars and the other unit, being Bitcoin, has some fluctuation risk, right, in the medium and short term for people, some volatility risk, then you're essentially incentivizing a lot of these businesses to go, okay, we got paid in Bitcoin for this transaction, but we owe the government $13. So what if the price of Bitcoin is down at the time at which we actually need to go pay taxes? Then, theoretically, we're going to be paying higher than 13%, right? Because we're going to have to dip into some of our other dollars to make up that difference because the USD value of Bitcoin in that time frame happens to be down, right? And so what I think needs to happen is it needs to be legislated based on the amount of Bitcoin, right? So if it's, let's just say an item is 0.1 Bitcoin that I'm paying for, and ultimately with a 13% on top of that, it's 0.113, then that 0.013 is what I think the merchants should need to pay the government. Why? Because what if I go ahead and pay Bitcoin now, and the merchant goes, well, I want to sell it. I want to get out of this Bitcoin. I want to go back to dollars. And if the price of Bitcoin goes up, then they're going to actually owe more taxes, right? Because they sold that Bitcoin and they need to go and purchase more Bitcoin at a higher price later. So to protect themselves and to do, what's smart and ultimately further integrate Bitcoin, as much as you can as like a quote currency and the way in which things are priced, is that merchant's going to go, okay, well, we need to hold this Bitcoin because we owe this much Bitcoin. We have this much Bitcoin. And whenever we have to go pay taxes later in the year, we've already got the Bitcoin there. We don't want any risk by selling this Bitcoin to get out of it. So I think if that law could be ushered in here in El Salvador, I think that would be a net, an absolute benefit, an absolute win, I think, for Bitcoin, because you'd have way more merchants who, when they get paid in Bitcoin, they become holders, and they need to hold it. And it's actually aligning the incentives in the correct way. So that's my idea. I am going to try to talk to more people here who I know sort of have a line to the president, and hope that idea can sort of make it into some of the legislation, as I think it's something that can logically makes a ton of sense, and I think has a pretty good shot at actually making it into the legislation. Got more videos coming for you guys. Like the video, comment below what you guys think. If you think it's a good idea, if there's any holes in the logic as well, tell me what you guys think. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.